What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. In today's episode, we're going to be getting some seedlings in the ground today, and I wanted to share with you some methods to protect those seedlings so that they're not damaged from pests, disease, or external factors like the sun and the wind. A lot of you have been getting your seedlings in the ground and very unfortunately have lost some seedlings and have been writing in like crazy trying to find some ways to protect them. So I figured to make this video because seedlings are something that it's one or the other. Either we start from seed and we pretty much just say the survival of the fittest, the strongest will survive, and we just kind of let some losses naturally happen, or we have seedlings that we start inside, like tomatoes, peppers, stuff that we've babied and we care about, and we really can't afford to lose the time. With those seedlings, we can't really just say, oh, if we lose some, that's okay, because we really need to make sure that we don't lose out on that precious time, because we started these things like 5 to 7 weeks ago. So that is really that's really beneficial for us to getting an early harvest, and it's very important that we don't lose those seedlings. So there are certain ones where we need to protect them so that we don't lose them. And so, like I said, with stuff that we're direct sowing, we don't worry about a few losses. They'll naturally happen, and that's why we start more seeds when we direct sow than we actually need seedlings for, because we know that we're going to lose about 25 to 30% of them. That's just naturally how it happens. And if they all survive, then we have to thin them. So either way, we are going to be losing some seedlings regardless. With our plants behind us here, we really need to give them some protection. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through some different ways to protect your seedlings and kind of break them down by pests, disease, and environmental factors, because there's a lot of different people encountering a lot of different issues. So I figured I'd just come out here today, and we were planting some seedlings anyways because it's a beautiful day. And what better to do on a beautiful day than get your garden started, right? All right, so the first way that we're going to be protecting our seedlings is from environmental damage. This is by far the most common type of damage that we encounter. We don't have many diseases or pests, but we're still going to talk about them. But I wanted to first talk about environmental damage because I think that's the one that most people encounter when it comes to damaged seedlings. When it comes to the sun, we can encounter things like sun scald or sunburn. And sun scald actually will damage the surface of the leaf. Now, the plants will recover from that, and that's usually caused because you didn't properly harden off your seedlings. And we have videos on that if you're interested in learning how to harden off your seedlings. But basically, if we move our plants from inside or underneath grow lights, or even from a greenhouse that has some level of protection from the sun, they're not accustomed to that really strong sun, and the leaves can burn. And so what you want to do is you want to protect them from the strong sun. And a way to do that is to simply use a bit of cardboard. This is a really great way to protect your seedlings. Now, my seedlings are far too big for these little bits of cardboard, but I'm using them as an example. Now, this will also protect them against the wind. When you get a lot of wind damage can actually be deadly. Sun, if your plants get sun scald, they're going to survive. They might not enjoy it, and they might defoliate a little bit. You might lose a little bit of leaves, but the plants are not going to die. They're going to get used to it. However, with the wind, if the wind comes and snaps your plant, well, your plant's dead. If it's a tomato, it can produce some suckers and stuff like that, but it's not ideal to have a snapped plant, that's for sure. Also, the wind can actually do something similar to the sun, which if you get really strong wind on leaves, what happens is the leaves will actually begin to shrivel and curl, and that causes stress. So it's not ideal at all to have them in super strong wind when they're first planted. And so wind can also cause some issues. The same method will apply. So all we're going to do is we're just going to take some cardboard, and we notice that we have a very strong wind usually coming out of the northeast. And so northeast winds are very common where we're at, but kind of gauge where you're at and just kind of look and follow those patterns. If you've lived at your house for long enough or where you're gardening long enough, you'll kind of notice a trend. 80% of the time we get a wind out of the northwest. So because 80% of the time the wind comes out of that direction, I'm going to protect my plants by putting these bits of cardboard here, just pushing them into the ground. Now again, these are small pieces of cardboard. You're going to want to use bigger pieces than this, because you want your cardboard shield to be bigger than the plant is, but this is just for an example. But you're going to put these in the ground and basically secure them so that you have a wind block. And that way we have wind protection from the north and from the west. So that way, if the wind comes out of the north or the west or the northwest, we're protected. And that way it's going to provide some shield from the wind. Likewise, we can also use this method to protect them against the sun. If you get a large piece of cardboard, that piece of cardboard will cast a shadow. And that shadow will give the plant some protection throughout the day so that it's not in the full bright sun the whole day. Very, very simple to use, and you know, it's a free resource. Just use some cardboard. We all have boxes coming in the mail, especially in these times, and you know, cardboard is a great thing to use. Not only can you compost it and break it down once you're done, but you know, you can use it as a plant protectant. So I really love that method. That's terrific. Another method that you can use cardboard for is for pest deterrent. So cardboard is a great way to trap slugs. Slugs are something that they're a pest that everyone deals with. They come onto your plants, they eat your leaves, and it's definitely your younger plants that suffer more than your larger plants. And so take big pieces of cardboard like this, set them down on the ground, and weigh them down with like a stone or something that's not going to allow the cardboard to blow. And because slugs like damp, humid environments that are cooler and shaded, this makes a perfect environment because the cardboard is a wonderful insulator. So it keeps the soil cool. It also keeps the soil damp, and also it keeps the soil dark because the sun can't penetrate through the cardboard. So the slugs will come and they'll congregate underneath these bits of cardboard here, and then all you have to do is lift them up, pull the slugs out, and you know, do what you want with the slugs, but that makes a wonderful slug trap as well. Again, a free resource and something that you can use to eliminate the pests. Now let's talk about a different way of protecting your plants, and that's another way of pest protection, and that's preventing against cutworms. So once you get your plant planted, all we need to do to protect against cutworms is use toothpicks. Now toothpicks are hard, they're woody, and they're very rigid, so that the cutworm cannot get its mouth around something really hard like this. So what we need to do is just take them and put them as close as we can get them to the base of the seedling, whatever you're planting. Usually this applies to tomatoes and peppers and brassicas. Cutworms really love those three crops. And all we're going to do is just put a triangle around the base of the tomato. That way the cutworm cannot wrap around the base of the plant. And that's really all you need to do to protect against cutworms. Very, very simple. Now, if you see me defoliating my tomatoes like this, that's just because it also is a great way to get your leaves off the soil. It's another great way to protect against pests. Oftentimes when leaves are sitting right on the ground, it allows the pest to climb up your plant. Many pests prefer to climb on leaves rather than up a stem. And so if you have your leaves sitting right on the ground like this, it's a very welcome invitation for pests. So I'll take my leaves, if it's a tomato or a pepper or anything like that, I'll make sure that all the leaves are clipped from the soil, and that way it ensures that there's a really good amount of space underneath the plant. So that's another way to protect against pests. Now, another thing that kills off a lot of seedlings in early spring is something called damping off. This is a disease that is actually caused by too much damp soil. And there's bacteria that are found in the damp soil that will actually feast on your seedlings. And what happens is they actually eat away at the stem and then cause it to fall flat on the ground. It actually looks very similar to cutworm damage. And cutworms, they'll actually saw right through the plant. Whereas damping off, it'll actually just kind of crimp and pinch, and then the weight of the plant will just kind of fall over, and it's not actually detached from the stem. You know, the two are not broken away, it just falls flat. And that's kind of how you can tell the difference between cutworms and damping off. So damping off happens, like I said, in early spring, very common, especially when your soil is damp. You have really good quality soil that holds on to moisture well. It's a good problem to have. I definitely, I'll definitely trade off a little bit of damping off if the season is super wet to dead and dry plants in the middle of summer. So it's a small sacrifice, and it does happen sometimes, especially if the season is super wet. You really can't do anything about Mother Nature, but what you can do is you can prevent it. And what you can do to prevent it is you can sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon around your plants. Now, cinnamon is a very good antibacterial and antifungal treatment because of the fact that it has chemical properties that are antifungal and antibacterial. So what we need to do is just take our seedlings here, and what we're going to do is we're going to plant them, and damping off affects the stem. So what we need to do is any part that's going to be buried in the soil, we need to cover with a little bit of cinnamon. What I need to do is I need to dig my hole as deep as I'm going to plant, and since I'm planting tomatoes, I'm planting them deep. And what I need to do is I need to take some cinnamon and just sprinkle it in the hole, just like that. You can get a big jug of this stuff at Sam's Club or any Costco, anything that sells like bulk. You don't need to buy these small containers. This is just for an example. You can buy a big jug of this stuff. And so now that we have the hole completely coated, we're just going to put our plant in the ground, push back the soil to fill it back in. So that way, anything that would have been around the stem has been treated with a good dose of cinnamon. Now, just make sure you sprinkle it pretty liberally around there. Don't go light on it, because it's the quantity of it that you use that's important. And over time, that'll just break down. It will not hurt any earthworms, any beneficial bacteria or things in your soil. It really is just very antifungal and antibacterial when it comes to bad bacteria and bad fungi, like the bacteria that causes damping off. So that is one great way to help prevent against damping off. The next way that I can tell you to prevent damping off is to remove any mulch from around the base. You see how we have a lot of this kind of wood chippy mulch here on top? Well, that actually can hold on to moisture more than we want. And so when we plant our seedlings, one thing we can do is we can actually take the mulch and pull it away from the base. That's another great way to prevent damping off. Just another additional way to kind of further help you out. And then once the season dries out a little bit and the threat of damping off has gone away, the threat of damping off usually only happens in the first 2 to 3 weeks of your seedlings being in the ground. After that, they start to thicken up, the stem starts to harden off, and you really don't have the threat of damping off. So while that threat is still there, just take your mulch, move it away from the base of the plant, and then once the threat has kind of passed, you can push the mulch back around the base of the plant. So there you go. There are some amazing ways to prevent against pests, diseases, as well as environmental factors that can damage your seedlings. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. If you did, make sure to throw a like up there. It really helps spread this video around to more people that would like to see it. Also, if you have any other ideas for content, things that you'd like to see, a lot of the content that we are creating comes from user-generated questions and viewer-generated concerns and just topics. So post those down in the comments box below. It'll really help me out to help you out, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. We'll catch you all later. See ya.